Hey everyone, my name is Jackson. Today I wanted to cover mineral identification. I know we kind of just went over this, but I think it's always good to refresh as much as we can, and I think there's some new stuff I can kind of contribute a little bit. All right, so learning objectives for today. Um, hopefully you guys will be able to understand the identification process of various minerals. There's a couple of other things that we didn't do during our lab that are ways we can identify minerals. And hopefully at the end of this, you'll be able to identify the example mineral and work your way through like a mineral identification key. Luster is essentially just how light reflects off of an object. It's split into two main parts, metallic and non-metallic. Generally, metallic objects reflect a lot of light. That's why they have their shine. So we call that a metallic luster. Non-metallic objects don't have that same kind of shine. They don't look like metal, but they're also broken up into various subclasses, which we'll cover right now. Most of the non-metallic lusters are kind of self-explanatory. Like glassy means it looks like glass, right? Greasy means it looks oily, greasy. It's pretty much based on the name. Adamantine is kind of hard and sparkly, like a diamond, but not metallic. And then you can see resinous. It resembles kind of like amber, and it's not very reflective. All right, so hardness measurements are a great way to narrow down minerals that look similar, because sometimes minerals will look very similar, but they'll have an entirely different kind of density and hardness. The hardness scale shows basically how minerals increase in hardness from 1 to 10, 1 being talc, it's extremely soft, almost everything cut through it, and then 10 being a diamond. They coat drill bits with diamonds because it's it's like the hardest material. So to measure hardness, you're going to use these tools on the side. You can see on the scale here. And basically, if the tool is harder than the mineral, it will cut through it. If it's not, it won't. So basically, you try to narrow it down until you find a spot where the tool won't cut through the mineral. Streak is the color of the powdered material left behind by a mineral. Usually this will be tested on a streak plate, which is just a piece of ceramic. It's like a piece of tile like you would use in your kitchen or on the floors. The only thing is it's not going to work for anything that's harder than 6.5 hardness, because then it's just going to cut through the tile. So in that case, you have to use something harder and kind of just grind off powder from the object, and you'll see what color the streak is. You're also going to want to drag the sharp end of whatever your mineral sample is across the plate. It's going to make it easier to kind of cut through and get that powder off onto the plate. Cleavage is the way that a mineral tends to break when you apply pressure to it. Generally, it's measured in planes of cleavage, 1 to 3, and by the difficulty of the break and the quality of the break, whether that's like a nice even straight break or an irregular one. They're also further classified in the ways shown below. Density is a little bit harder to record because you need a couple of things. You need an accurate measuring cup where you can measure the displacement of the object, and you need an accurate scale so you can get the weight. Density is just going to be the weight per volume. So even if the two objects, your two samples that you're trying to compare that look similar, aren't like the same size, you can do the math. You can break down the weight per milliliters of volume displaced. Shape or habit is how a mineral tends to form on its own. So they're also kind of self-explanatory based on the name. Like blocky, right? Looks like a block. It's like a box or a ball. Bladed, right? Kind of shaped like a needle. The sample here is prismatic, but we're going to use that later for an example, so I'm not going to tell you exactly what that mineral is, but it's pretty common. You might be able to guess just looking at it. A lot of people gravitate towards identifying minerals by color, which can be great. It can get you going in the right direction, but it can also be misleading because lots of minerals share the same color, and there are minerals that have multiple different hues as well. So it's not super reliable, but it's part of the bigger picture. Magnetism is pretty straightforward. Some minerals actually have their own magnetism, like they're magnets that will attract metal. Um, but generally, when you're measuring magnetism, you're taking a magnet and you're placing it on the sample and seeing if it reacts. Hydrochloric acid tests are really useful for identifying carbonates, which can very much narrow down what the mineral is. Basically, you just drop the little bit of hydrochloric acid on the sample, and be careful, by the way. Acid is dangerous. It will burn through not just your clothing and table, but it'll burn through your skin really easily. So definitely be cautious with it. But when you put it on the sample, it'll react with the carbon, and it'll bubble and release carbon dioxide. A lot of you are probably going to be able to identify this mineral just looking at it. It's very widely known. It's a classic kind of look, but there are also other minerals that look similar to it. Um, so for this one, we have right a glassy luster. Um, this this one is clear, but it can also be pink. The hardness is 7. It has that hexagonal cross section sort of structure. Um, the fracture is conchoidal, and you would use an identification key to figure this out. If you want to do that, definitely do that right now. Um, Pause it because I'm about to spoil it. So if you're trying to do this on your own, just pause it. But this is quartz. So if you use the identification key, it's going to narrow down, like based on all these things, all the observations that you made of the sample. Right, you would do these things yourself. Like you would figure out the hardness by using tools. Um, and it's actually kind of fun. It's kind of like a game trying to figure out what it is. Um, so yeah, the correct answer is quartz. All right. Thanks everyone for listening. Hopefully you learned something new. If you didn't, it was a little refresher. So have a good day.